Today, we will talk about the XDC network once again and talk about the role that TradeTeq plays in revolutionizing the trade finance industry, particularly around the potential for machine learning algorithms being applied to small to medium enterprises who want to get into the trade finance industry. This is a economy that is worth about 2.5 trillion that TradeTeq and the XDC network and R3 Corda have concentrated on to improve the overall trade finance industry that is worth anywhere between 30 trillion and I have seen as high as about 115 trillion each and every year. And I want to run through this. So I was able to check into the white paper on the TradeTeq site that is all about machine learning and the trade finance industry. And the XDC network and the actual digital asset XDC can be used to make the credit process much more efficient and quicker for companies that traditionally have not had access to invest into the trade finance industry. So before we get into that, here is the actual white paper on TradeTeq's site. It is called Machine Learning Credit Analytics for Trade Finance. And it is interesting because I was able to connect this to the XDC asset that we are all familiar with and tie it into how it can actually be used in this application that would make the asset XDC that much more valuable as well. So, credit analytics is an important part of trade finance. Unlike many other lending activities, trade finance is mostly required for smaller companies with relatively small loan amounts and for borrowers that don't have formal credit ratings. TradeTeq's goal is to expand access to trade finance for SMEs by making trade finance exposures investable. And as I've already said, that market gap for SME investment in trade finance is worth about 1.7 to 2.5 trillion. So it can bring a lot of value onto the actual XDC network itself. And that point is particularly important because the TradeTeq organization is heavily involved with the actual asset XDC and the Xinfin organization. And I have explained this more in the past and why it is actually so important, but it all comes back to the individual Andre Kasterman. Not really too sure how to pronounce his name in all honesty, but he is tied into TradeTeq and Xinfin, as well as a lot of other organizations that are all revolving around trade finance. So just as a reminder, he is closely associated with TradeTeq. He has been in an advisor role to the TradeTeq board since May of 2018 and continues to play an advisory role as the company advances. And he is the chairman and CEO of Casterman Advisory, which has to do with enhancing TradeTeq's offerings. TradeTeq serves as the core technology provider for the TFD initiative, which has to do with trade finance and involved in the XDC map that I refer to a lot as well. So now that that's a little bit more understood, I want to go back to the core information part of this, which is the actual credit scores that use machine learning and can use XDC in order to make that much more efficient. So TradeTeq's approach is to use a large set of available and emerging information sources that uses a lot of different company features as inputs, but does not place a hard requirement on the availability of a lot of them that a lot of these SMEs might not have. And it applies a rigorous evidence-based credit scoring process, which allows for both better credit decisions and the improved access to credit for a lot of SMEs. And it has been hard for these SMEs to get into investing in the trade finance industry in the past, primarily because of this Altman Z-score and its modifications and variations, which that I read up on it a bit, but it uses a linear discriminant analysis based on several accounting indicators. It has been in use since 1968 and it has improved, but it still does not work. It still does not work all that well for these SMEs in the trade finance industry. There are 5 things that Altman Z-score actually checks into. It takes into account the working capital to total assets, retained earnings to total assets, earnings before interest and taxes to total assets, market value of equity to total liabilities, and the sales to total assets. It assigns a weight to each of those and it sums them up. A score below 1.8 suggests a high risk of bankruptcy, while scores above 3 indicate low risk. And the problem that TradeTeq is trying to improve is that a lot of these SMEs just don't have the amount of information to result in a very positive score. And that is because traditional credit scoring requires a small number of accounting entries and ignores most information available in typical company accounts, as well as any non-accounting information that is available. At the same time, it places a hard requirement on each of these, and the score cannot be calculated for any company that misses even one of these entries. That combination of a small number of entries used with hard requirements does not work well with a lot of these kinds of SMEs, which means that a good predictive credit model should be able to accommodate varying information availability across different companies. If a certain entry is not there, the absence of that may give useful information about a company, and a good model would incorporate this lack of information into the actual score rather than just not allowing that company to participate at all. So essentially what TradeTeq is trying to do is that they have created credit models that combine registration and accounting information about companies and enrich that with geographical and socioeconomic information. They are trying to create a more holistic approach that can provide access to these SMEs to invest in trade finance assets, hoping to unlock that 1.7 to 2.5 trillion. And they are trying to accomplish this by using machine learning algorithms to be able to process a lot of information about a lot of different companies in this SME category, and be able to create much more accurate and representative algorithms and assessments to determine if these companies are actually a good fit. Here, they call out that it is well known that the networks that an individual belongs to can be a good predictor of their credit worthiness, which is used in a number of consumer credit scores. It is also well known that payment and supply chains are important transmission channels for credit shocks. By the nature of trade finance, private information will be often available in batches by trade network with underlying credit exposures linked by common clients, suppliers, or bank relationships. That allows us to use this network information by applying both supervised and unsupervised machine learning algorithms. Network information will allow timely inference that would not be possible to make in a company by company analysis. For example, for trade finance information, it allows us to spot features not visible in a simple cross-sectional analysis. Which ties us all back to how TradeTeq can use the XDC network to improve the availability of credit to SMEs by incorporating machine learning algorithms in credit scoring for trade finance. Now, and here are the top ways that XDC could actually be implemented in these machine learning AI tools. But I would think that the most important and direct way that XDC itself ties in is by real-time credit assessment. By leveraging the XDC network's real-time data capabilities, TradeTeq can update credit scores in real time, allowing for more flexible and responsive credit scorings. However, there are also two more important points that are common for AI that actually implements blockchain technology. The combination of blockchain and machine learning can significantly reduce the risk of fraud by providing a tamper-proof record of transactions, while machine learning algorithms can detect unusual patterns indicative of fraudulent activity. And because blockchain technology offers enhanced transparency in financial transactions, When combined with machine learning's ability to accurately assess risk, it increases trust among all parties involved, including lenders, SMEs, and investors. TradeTeq just has one more way of being able to use XDC in the XDC network to tap into not only this 1.7 to about 2.5 trillion dollar per year trade finance SME investment niche, but it is involved in so many of these other things involved in this 30 trillion to approximately 115 trillion dollar per year trade finance industry overall.